Okay, cool. Let's go live. This is James Maduk speaking, trainingsites.io. And what we're going to be doing today is we're going to go over 5 hacks about how to make sure that your courses that you're creating with Chatgpt and all these other AI tools, so they don't sound like they're coming from Chatgpt and all these other AI tools. It can be not only frustrating, but you're creating your first online course, you're creating online course content. You've heard about AI, you want to do it, but any of the stuff that you get out of it kind of doesn't sound like you. It sounds like you copy and pasted stuff from ChatGPT. So what I want to do is I want to go over 5 kind of pieces here that can allow you to take the content that you do generate with tools like ChatGPT that actually make it your own or ensure that it sounds less mechanical, less robot-like, and more like yourself. So, um, this is something that happens all the time. There's those 5 hacks I'm going to kind of show you today, but I want to go over and how I got to this. One of the things that a number of services that we create for our course creators is when we're doing marketing stuff is a lot of times we help people with creating YouTube videos that they can use to market their course and also blog content or other content on their website to market their particular course or their business. And one of the things that comes up is, we help people create content, but a lot of times they're worried about it doesn't really sound like me, or it's not in my voice. How do I make it like my voice? And here's the first thing that I noticed. And here's an example of creating YouTube video scripts, which is almost like creating course scripts, right? If you're going to create a lesson or a topic or some content for your course, a lot of people start with a script. They have a script that they want to follow along when they're talking to the camera. They're looking at their slide decks. They're looking at their screens while they're doing whatever they're recording for their course content. A lot of people work from a script. And this is the interesting thing that we ran into. And I don't know if it applies to you, but if it does, let's just play around with this and see how these prompts I'm going to show you. You're going to end up with 25 prompts. I have them listed below actually in a link so you can go see them after the fact. Again, anything that's here will be in the description below. And also, while I'm saying it, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel, get the notifications, everything. I'd love to have you as a subscriber and keep up to these live sessions that I do every day of the business week and sometime on weekends. So this is what normally happens. A lot of times you'll see people, they'll have an idea for something. They will go to ChatGPT. They'll work on a prompt or try and find a big prompt that they can use to generate some content. Then they take the content and they revise it. There's another group of people who are worried about, well, it doesn't really sound like me. I generated the content, and when I have to revise it, it's like too much work trying to revise something that I was supposed to be able to save time on. So the other thing that we've seen people do is we have them create the script that they would normally use or have a script that they have used, and then have ChatGPT look at that script and then create a new script or new content. So it kind of flips it on its head, right? If you're working from the ChatGPT frame of reference or the Claude reference when you generate content, it's really hard on getting it to understand the context of the way that you like, know, style, present everything about you. On the other hand, if you have the context first and you get it to revise or expand on it, it can make a big difference on how quickly the content comes, but more importantly, how much revision needs to be done. So we're trying to think about how can we make a simple kind of step or some simple prompts that you can use to make sure that whichever approach you take, it's done in a way that it sounds less like a robot and more like you, and that any of the content that you actually create can work a lot easier. Now, there's 2 things and a caveat on this. Last time I looked on, there's an AI for this. There was 15,000 different AI tools. What I'm talking about are right now is using ChatGPT and Claude. Those are the 2 that we use. So that's the first thing. One of the things is that doing this context part in ChatGPT doesn't allow you to keep the same context you have to kind of set it up each particular time that you do a chat. On the other hand, if you have the paid version of Claude, it allows you to keep or create projects where you have your style and your context that's always there. It is part of the chat. So two different styles or approaches there. The big difference, of course, is that right now when I'm making this, ChatGPT has external reference, so you can actually give it links to videos and documents and URLs and have it pull from that. And Claude doesn't have that ability. So you got to make sure you upload it with reference materials, whether that's a document or a PDF, or I think it does audio files, a whole bunch of things to keep that context in place. So you can do it within the tools, but I think these prompts that I'm going to go over will make it a little bit easier. So here's let me open up the, let me do this one here. Again, I'll show you the document that I put together for this so that you actually have it. Just going to open up the screen here. And again, this is the one that's in the link before, but I put it in our library so that you could actually go and see it and make sure that I have it here. So I'm just on another screen. Let me actually pull this one up right now. I'll pull up my pencil because we're going to use the pencil in the short term. So let's go to, I'm working on my other monitor here while we're talking. So these are 5 steps, and what I did with the 5 steps is I created 5 prompts for each of the steps so that we can go through them and take a look on how you'd be able to use them to make sure that whatever you're creating with ChatGPT sounds authentic. So let's go back to the one that was the latest one. I want to make sure that I created a prompt here that's new. Here we go. So I'm going to open this one up for you, and we'll go through them one by one so that you can see how they work. So here's the ones that I wanted to go through. So the first one, this is actually the link, and I'll put the link below so that you have it. So the first one that I want you to kind of think of as these hacks is, I want you to think of the term, and we'll put this one number 1. Hopefully that shows up. So I'm going to call this one voice mirroring. And what that one is about is making sure that you have it set up so that any of the interactions you have with these tools, it's a tone and style analysis. So you want to make sure that you give a prompt that allows people to understand signature phrases. If there's things, or you're a speaker, a coach, a consultant, there might be things that you use on a regular basis. You want to have a library of those things, right? So write them down is the first thing. Are there particular phrases for your industry, particular ones in your brand, particular ones that you use on a regular basis? The other thing is things like the pacing and rhythm. When you create content, do you create short, simple sentences? Do you use per long paragraphs, short paragraphs? What are the phrasing that you use? Do you use commas and periods? There's a style to the way you normally write, or more importantly, speak, and you want to make sure that you can have prompts or apply that style to any of the content that gets generated. Things like metaphors and analogies, like how do you use them? Do you use metaphors when you're presenting content, whatever that be? Or do you have certain ones that you use? The other thing is the expertise level. So if you're doing content that's for someone who's an advanced or intermediate user, you may use different language or different styles of that content that you've curated as opposed to someone who's a beginner. So that kind of tone and style of it, you got to make sure that you've put that together. So here's some examples of some of these prompts. And again, I've created these ones for you, but here's some ones just to look at, and we'll play around with them here. So here's the first one, tone and style analysis. Here's one. It says, analyze the following sample of my content. So you put in, sentences or paragraphs, or depending on which version of the tool that you're using, you can put in quite a bit of information, whether that's uploading a document or providing a URL for it to take a look at. And then just ask ChatGPT, just say, identify key characteristics of my writing style, including tone, sentence structure, and word choice. Then rewrite this new content to match those characteristics. Okay, so there's a simple prompt that allows you to generate something and revise it in your own content based on something that you've done previously. So this should give you a way to remove that robot and get yourself back into your content. If you want to work on signature phrases, there's things that you want to do. Here are some phrases and expressions I frequently use, and then list them. Just give it a list of the ones that you use. Incorporate these naturally into the following content, ensuring it sounds more like an authentic voice, and you can put whatever content needs to be modified there or links to it as well. Okay, pacing and rhythm, same thing. Examine the example of my typical content structure. Note the pacing, paragraph length, and how I transition between ideas. So metaphor and analogy mirroring, expertise level mirroring. So those are some ones that you can quickly look at and say, okay, I got my style. It's not about necessarily the context. It's how ChatGPT creates content in that context in your style. So it's 3 different pieces that are involved now, okay? So that one's pretty cool. Here's the other one that often kind of causes a problem for people. And when people are creating course content, as an example, and especially if you've been around for a while like I have, you may find that you have stories that you tell, or you have anecdotes of when you applied it. Remember, people are buying your courses because of your expertise. And if you can't put your expertise naturally into the content, you're going to have stuff that doesn't sound like you, right? So you want to be able to do this, have an insight integration into the particular content that you're creating. So that's the other one that I'm going to put here. So we're going to call it, and I make sure I spell it correctly. So it's insight integration. These are a series of prompts that are really about making sure that when you create content, the AI can go back and analyze the content and make sure that the content is coming through from your perspective, the lens, your lens. You also want to make sure that any experiences that you have or stuff is included in the content. So how do you do that? The other thing is the counterpoints too. If you I did another video up. I don't know if it's published yet, but it's all about my 3 kind of favorite hacks that you use with prompts. And one of them ones is just asking ChatGPT for its opinion. But you have to look at, when you're creating your content, bring your expertise in it, but also how to apply counterpoints, pros and cons, examples based on your experience in different places. Okay, case studies, trends, all of these things are ones that you may want to spend time with, and more importantly, use and build into it. So let's take a look at some of the prompts there that we can use in that particular setup. So here they are. Input analysis. Review the following content, identify 3 key points that align with your expertise, and then you approach differently based on your experience. Explain the reasoning for each. Okay, so if you have content, write down some of your experiences, your anecdotes, the types of stories that you've used. And especially when you're doing your research, right? If you're creating your content and you're thinking about, how do I get this content from other places? I've curated it. How do I make it my own? So drawing from my personal experience of, and then you can give some stories, for example, what additional insights or what nuances and applications can you add to make this content more like me? Case studies. Here's a summary. Recall a specific case from a project that you did. So give it the idea and then say, how can you apply or add that? So you want to make sure that you're able to put in some of that content or some of you into the particular content. Here's the other one that I came up with, and that was one, it looks like we're disconnecting from time to time here. Did I get it disconnected? Let's see if I can get this to right again. So we'll put number 3 in, and there it goes. I lost my other 2. We'll go back to them in a minute. But this one is, now I never know how to actually pronounce this. Anecdote. So you want to put an anecdote anchor in. And this is the one, again, when you have a style or you have a particular way of taking an experience and tying it into the content that ChatGPT or any of the AI tools has created, how do you take that kind of structure of stuff that you researched and you put together, have it in your own style or voice, but how do you connect it? How do you make sure that it connects to a case study or those particular experiences? So you want to look like things so that it can look at the content it created and see if in fact that there are anecdotes in it. If you use anecdotes, does the content being generated use anecdotes? How do you bridge together the stories and the content? What are some different prompts that you can give ChatGPT to actually include those particular things? And where should they be placed? So here's some examples of ones that we have as prompts here. And again, these ones are all listed below, but it's like review the following content, identify 3 to 5 key points where a personal anecdote would effectively illustrate what you're trying to get across. So if ChatGPT takes a look at this particular content it's generated, you're saying, hey, take a look at this content and let me know, should I place, or is there an anecdote that I can place in here that is going to make it sound less like a robot? So how am I going to bring that experience through an anecdote and put it into the content? Okay. Or works the other way around. I have an anecdote of this. How could you place it in this content? So if you get something back from ChatGPT and you want to say, hey, how can I put my story into this? You can use that prompt to actually put it in. Here's one, number 3. Based on this lesson topic, generate 5 prompts that would help me recall relevant personal experiences or stories. Okay, so you've got one where you're saying, where could I put it? You've got one that says, I have it, put it in. This third prompt says, hey, remind me of some, or prompt me to find out if I have one that I could possibly use. Okay, so there's 5 different ones there that you might want to consider. The other one we're going to talk about now, this one is called, I put it down as, I tried to keep these as memorable, flow framing. Okay, so flow framing. What's flow framing about? So flow framing is putting together your particular structure and way of presenting things. One of the happens when we've been creating a lot of courses, especially when we started doing this, is that when we created it, you had a lesson topic, or whatever structure you had to the course. But what happens is that the content ended up looking the same because it was always the same kind of structure as what was being output from ChatGPT or Claude. It was always the same kind of structure, and it wasn't necessarily the structure of the presenter, it was the structure that came out of the AI tool. So this flow framing is to make sure that when you have content created, that it comes out in a way that you like to present it. Not the way the tool likes to present it, but the way you like to present it. And I'm talking about, paragraph structure, styles, bullet points, all of the things so that the content looks like it came from you. It's not necessarily about the content. We talked about that earlier. This is about the way that that curated content is actually being displayed on the screen. So just things like the actual structure of the entire course, the lesson flow. So what are the personal ways that you teach stuff? How do you normally teach when you present content? If you're speaking, if you're consulting, working with someone, if you're doing a particular craft or style, how do you normally do it? How do you make sure that the content that's generated put in? So the big one, I think, is that teaching style. Some people are humorous, have a lot of fun. Some people are very serious and structured. How do you like to do it? How do you make sure that the content that you're getting back and revising also uses that particular style? So let's take a look at that one there. We'll look at these couple prompts. And again, these prompts are all available to you. Course skeleton. Create a basic outline of a course, include main sections and key points for each. After generating, I'll adjust this structure to match my preferred teaching flow. So a lot of people just go to Chatgpt and they say, give me a syllabus. And then they kind of revise it. But this one says, hey, give it to me. But what I'm going to do is I want you to match my particular style or structure. So you can give it the style structure and then have it back in a way that is more like you. Here's an AI-generated lesson structure. Help me adapt the teaching style by suggesting natural transitions between topics and places to insert my usual techniques or anecdotes or places that we've done before. Content block organizers. This is the one that's really important, especially if you're doing text-based stuff, or even scripts where you're creating video scripts for your slide decks. It's like, I have the following blocks of content for my course, and you list them out and just say, give me some ways to organize them, and then I'll choose the style that best fits me. So just don't ask it, get a prompt and use it. It's like, here it is, give me 3, 4, 5 versions. I will combine them or make them in a way that is unique to me and give them back to you to use. Okay, so there's a couple different ones to kind of play around with. And I think the final one that I want to talk about here, this fifth kind of hack, and again, these are all available to you. And having said that, I did these 5 hacks. The other thing that I do have, and I'll give you a link at the end as well, is we actually now have I have a service that I will create courses with you using these style hacks, plus using the teach framework that I talked about yesterday, and the 4 styles of prompting. So we've got a nice system set out here for using courses. We'll actually do one-on-one courses with you using those prompts, and I'll put the link below at the end. So the last one, number 5, is, let's make sure I spell it. So it's an authenticity filter. So we've got those different pieces there, and I'll just review them again. So we've got voice mirroring, insight integration, anecdote anchor, flow framing, and the next one is authenticity filter. So what's that one about? This authenticity filter is all about making sure that that style consistency, your tone, your style, all of these things we talked about is identical in each of the lessons and courses and quizzes and topics, the handouts, the marketing materials, everything that you've done has that same consistency amongst all of them. So it's not, I did this particular portion by Chatgpt, this part's by me, that one is by someone else. So it's like you want to make sure that you've got that set up. You also want to make sure that there's enough of your personal experience in it, right? So it's going to go through the content, all of it that you've created, and say, hey, is this really enough of me in it? Is it only me in certain places? Can I add more? And is it audience-specific language? Does it come across as if it's Chatgpt talking to your students, or does it come across as if it's you who's actually been there, lived it? Is it you that is actually providing the content for them? So these are some of the prompts that you can use to do that. Again, I have 5 available for you. You can take a look at them. Style consistency check. And it's simple prompt, review the following content and identify any phrases or sentences that don't match my usual writing style. And then you can remind it and say, my typical style includes casual tone, industry-specific jargon, write it down, give it there. And then it says, highlight any inconsistencies. How can I make sure that it sounds like me? Another one, number 2, personal experience integration. Analyze the content and identify places where I can or should have put my personality into the particular style. Where can I put it in that would make it sound more authentic? Okay. Audience-specific language. If you, again, use phrases, terms that are unique to your industry, or ways, just even simple words that should be used. have it go through and take a look and ask it, evaluate the content for language and examples that may not resonate with my audience, highlight any parts that are too generic or not tailored. Perspective content, just go through and say, hey, is this from the perspective of my student? Does it come across as it's from my student's perspective? Is it from someone who isn't a student or in my target market? And then highlight areas where perhaps I should update it. And then jargon and terminology. That one's nice. It's like, if you have that jargon, just make sure that it's available to you to copy and paste in and say, hey, have I used this or am I not using this? And have it analyze the content that you've actually created. So these kind of 5 hacks, the ones I went through, and I'll put them again, the link below for this. But you've got that first thing is you're going to go take a look and say voice mirroring, is it sound to style and me? Number 2, insight integration. Number 3, anecdote anchor to put you into it. Flow framing, so it gets delivered in the way that's important to you. And finally, is it authentic? These are all things that you can do to create really great content that sounds like you and not have to worry about doing that content dump. Does it take a little bit of work? Yeah, unfortunately it does. Does it sound more like you? Yeah, it does. And you'll be happier with greater content. Remember, at the end of the day, it's about answering questions that your particular students may have. It's about guiding them to a particular outcome that you know how to guide them to, that you've experienced, and it's putting yourself in their shoes to help them and adapting all of your created material to have them consume it in a way that is fun for them and, more importantly, able to teach online. If you want any more, like and subscribe, of course, to the channel. I do these every day. These are live sessions I go through. I try and put all the content up at trainingsites.io. And again, I do have a particular program that's available right here. I'll put the link up and we'll go to the page here just quickly so that you can see it. Put this one up so you can see it. This one is trainingsites.io/AI course. If you want to build your own course with me, I'll do it with you one-on-one. We'll use all of these prompts and stuff to create your content. It's live sessions with me one-on-one, 2 each week for 4 weeks as we get this stuff all done. And at the end, you're going to have a course ready to go and some emails to send out, descriptions of the course and the actual course content. So go visit trainingsites.io AI course when you're ready. Book some time with me for a kickoff session and we'll go from there. So hope you enjoyed this. We'll be back tomorrow or the next day. Again, having fun with this video stuff. I got all the stuff in my head I want to get out, and I'm betting that you do too. So let's work together on creating courses, teaching online, and having fun starting, building, and growing our education business. Take care. Expect the best.